The first phase is where AI gets to know you. AI knows everything about everything.
Whoa, 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 you wanna know unbreakable.
So most people think that artificial intelligence is about writing faster, automating tasks, cutting costs. But what if the real opportunity isn't outside of us, but it's more inside of us? What if AI could actually help you see who you really are, where we're stuck, and who you're meant to become? Today, we're going to be digging deep into that exact frontier of how to leverage AI to unlock your superhuman potential and make better decisions, eliminate friction, and operate at the highest version of yourself. Our guest, Rich Schefren, really needs no introduction if you've been in the internet marketing space for a while. He's one of the guru to the gurus, and he's really shaped this well, actually anything that you buy online. If you see a funnel, if you see a landing page, I mean, you name it, starting with the Internet Marketing Manifesto, so many years ago. He's been really working behind the scenes, working with every person who's really made big shifts in the space. And now we're moving into AI. So Rich, welcome to Unbreakable.
Excited to be here, George. Excited to talk to you about AI wherever the conversation takes us.
So I know you're kind of like me. When we get siloed on a thing, you go into a deep, deep rabbit hole. And you went into a rabbit hole, I think a little over a year ago, right? With this AI thing, when you
Yeah.
started coming up with the idea of Zenith. So because of your prolific background in internet marketing and in human psychology and buying behavior and all of this amazing bucket of knowledge you're bringing, why have you shifted into AI and why now?
Well, so I was exposed to AI early on. In fact, I had an AI company several years ago called Site Visitor, and I actually presented on it at Todd Brown's Marketing Funnel Live event in like 2017 or 18, and I um, it was clear to me at that time that most entrepreneurs were not prepared for AI, that they didn't have their own data. And if you don't have your own data, there's only so much that you can do with AI. So I was explaining like what the evolution of AI and how it all developed. And I was just explaining to people how that it all is powered by data and people should start aggregating data. And I gave them a bunch of ways they could start doing that. But after that, other than some projects for Agora, there wasn't really a lot of AI that I was doing. And then AI started to become more popular. And I just had this thought one day of doing a project, a promotion really, of doing a 5 day kind of challenge, but not really a challenge, more course that where Jay Abraham and myself wanted to see if we could create an entire marketing campaign in 5 days, an hour a day, where we didn't do anything, but we had a different AI expert each day, and we called it the AI Five, and we sold it back in like 2023, I believe, and in 2024, and it was our best-selling individual product for those year, like for that year, and primarily because AI is the trend in selling now, right? That's what people are looking for, and so it was a valuable product. But other than that, I wasn't really using AI that much. And then what happened was I had this experience where I was in somewhat of a funk, which I go into from time to time. And at that moment in time, my business was losing a little bit of money, and I wasn't really doing anything to fix it. And I just was kind of getting a little upset with myself for not feeling like fixing it and just, kind of blah. And I had written in my journal that day, and then I had some free time and wasn't really sure what to do next. And I wrote this report like 15 years ago for clients, not one of my marketing reports, but a client report, and it was about the mental game of business, and it was called The Hidden Obstacles of Success. And I got more positive feedback from that report than any other client report that I wrote, which was kind of surprising to me, but nonetheless, that's the case. And I just like when I went into my office that day, I was like, I saw it, and I just thought to myself, who I was when I wrote that report was in a better place than where I am right now, I feel like I could actually benefit from going through it. But I don't really want to read my own stuff, because if I read my own stuff, I'll just think about all the ways I would say it now and how I could say it better and blah, blah, blah. And so I wasn't really sure how to do it. But, I have the file, right? So I don't need to actually take the actual like physical report. I have the files. I was like, you know what? I'll load it into ChatGPT. And so I loaded the whole report into ChatGPT, and I had a conversation with Chat, like asking it to kind of take the role of the other side of that report. And there were it's an intense report. It asks a lot of very like difficult questions, but I answered all of them like in Chat. And I found it immensely valuable. It was really helpful to me. And really kind of helped me just kind of make a small shift. And then the next day I actually went about like fixing what I needed to fix, and the business started making money again. And then I'd say like after like 2 or 3 weeks, I went back to my old habits, because now I felt better. Now I could be lazy and the business was making money. But so over some period of time, I completely forgot about that experience, right? And I then came across a prompt that was like a prompt that asked Chat to kind of reveal to you deeper insights about yourself based on what it already knows about you. And I put that in, and I was kind of floored with what came out. In fact, I wasn't even sure how it knew those things at first. But I was like blown away by how insightful it was and how valuable it was actually reading it. And then I remembered, oh, this must be from that time, like 7 months earlier, that I had kind of done that back and forth with those deep penetrating questions when I was going through the hidden obstacles report. And that moment just like really had like it really drew me in. I was fascinated, and not only fascinated, but just extremely drawn to taking it much further, and that's what I did. So then all of a sudden, it became like my singular focus, and loaded in my whole life into AI, and I, um, I went a little overboard from the standpoint that it like just too much material. Like couldn't, if the too much data is, as bad as no data. And so, there was a back and forth, well, first I went, let me say a little bit more. First, I then went around to the other AIs, and what I realized, like at that time, was that ChatGPT was the only one that really had memory and a perpetual memory, and that was kind of critically important. And that's how it knew those things from, several months earlier, or 7, 10, 9, however many months earlier when I went through my report. So anyway, I really doubled down, and then what I found was that any area of my life where the AI had a complete picture, like full understanding, it was very easy to like chart a path to be better, to improve it, and to actually have it improve, not just like, on paper, but have it improve. Like having this AI that knew me so well and knew what was going on, allowed it to, one, identify like how I might go about self-sabotaging within my awareness or outside my awareness, and recognize the strengths I have, the weaknesses I have, the goal I have, and help me kind of see things I didn't see before, so I can do different things to get to what it is I want. So, from everything from me saying, that I'm sad that I haven't written my girlfriend a long romantic card in quite a while because I don't necessarily feel that way, but it makes her happy to receive them. And AI telling me, why do you have to be so black and white and everything, Rich? Like, why can't you just write her like 1 or 2 nice things in a card? Why does it have to be nothing? Right. And that being like a very valuable thought that I never thought of. And, it's not like that's a small little thing, but in every area, my business, my health, my relationships, the money I'm making, every area has improved because of it. right? Like, and because of that, I realized that then I wanted to actually roll something out. Well, I first asked AI, like, I was like, hey, is it possible for us to create a program or a system where other people could have an AI that knows them as well as you know me? Because it knows me better than I know me, right? Like it knows every score of every profile that I could ever take. I don't have to take the profile. I can just ask, what's my score on this? And I know this because I've asked it, what's my score on all the ones I have taken, and it's gotten them right. So I asked AI about that, and it was totally possible. And so that's what we went about building. And it's really funny. Like I'm just telling you, I'm sorry for going so long, but I'll just kind of wrap it up in a second. So I created this course, and originally, right, the course was, I called it like, Zenith Mind OS, and it's the best-selling course I ever created, and it is the best results in the fastest amount of time of any program I've ever created. Um, in other words, like we're getting testimonials in day 1 and day 2, day 3, right? Like it's insane. But so I went about designing the course, and the course was originally created just for the AI to get to know you absolutely backwards and forwards, so that you have this co-pilot that can help you in everything. But like, that's the end benefit. So I then had to look at like, okay, well, what's going to make this valuable for people as they're going through it, feeding the machine that information. And that gave me an opportunity to bring together a lot of stuff that I've been exposed to, learned, and actually experienced myself over many years. So, there's the coaching that I've done, right? Just for ridiculous number of people, right? And for those that don't know, like I coached Russell Brunson early on, and Ryan Dice early on, and Mike Filsain, and most of the big names. And so I got a very good understanding of like, what is it that they have that others don't, right? And what do people need in order to thrive? And so I'm very clear about that. And I'm very clear about the entrepreneurial path and what makes someone a winner versus a loser mentally, and et cetera. Then, for those that don't know, I invented the automated webinar, and was awesome for my business. But I made so much money in such a short period of time that everything's relative. So, I made a lot of money for myself. Not like flying on private jets or anything like that, but good enough. And so much so that I had a midlife crisis, and that midlife crisis had me take 5 years off, where I just kind of like took my business and made it relatively small, and spent a lot of time with my family, and did every transformation program out there for my own personal benefit, right? So I went to Landmark. I was the only person who wasn't dragged to Landmark. Like I went in to Landmark, right? Having already known everything in the course, because I had read all the source material, and because I'm an obsessive reader. And I went to the Hoffman process out in California, and I just did everything, and I read everything, and I read all the source material, and I read all the philosophy that it was based on. And I was blown away by it. Totally changed my life and really helped me. I had my midlife crisis when I was like around 40, 42. I'm 54 now. But totally put my life back on the proper trajectory. And when I came back, I was so blown away by the transformation technology, which is very different than self-help. So a lot of people think like transformation is like, oh, that's like Tony Robbins. No, it has nothing to do with that. This is about like, how do you actually change the way someone sees the world, and so they are actually a different person, not a little bit better, right? But different, right? And so I was so blown away by that tech that I wanted to do something with it in the entrepreneurial space. So I did a workshop for entrepreneurs using that kind of transformation process. And I did it 3 times, each time with a different leader from the transformation space. So one time I did it with the head of program development from Landmark, right? So His name was Alan. So we co-led because I can't. It's very difficult for me to be very like confrontational with people on their personal life, and people will hold on to what's not working, dragging, and and kicking. And so did it once with Alan, once with a gentleman by the name of Joseph Riggio, another transformation person, and then lastly, I did it once with this psychologist who also came from leading other transformation large group awareness trainings like LifeSpring. So it's a similar landmark. Her name was Dr. Laura Emery. Got people amazing results, insane results, but it was very uncomfortable for me because people would come in loving me, and then by Friday night they wanted a refund. By Saturday morning they hated me. By Saturday afternoon they loved me again. Saturday night they hated me again, and then Sunday they loved me more than they've ever loved someone outside of their family. But like I don't like people hating me. Like literally, if we ended it at that moment, they might go get a gun and shoot me. So because just to give people a perspective, like what the hell could they have people do? The first night, right? I'm in Delray Beach here in Florida, and my office. We have a building. I'm in my house right now, but we have a building a couple blocks away from here, and that's where we did the workshops. And then 2 blocks or 3 blocks away from there is Atlantic Avenue, which is like the main strip where all the restaurants and places of business are. And so we take a break Friday night for dinner. And the good news is that you have 2 hours for dinner. The bad news is that you cannot buy yourself dinner. You have to get someone, and it can't be someone in this room. It has to be someone from the real world to buy you dinner, and you can't tell them why. And good app, hope you eat. And so, like, those are the kinds of things. Now, I went with them, and I did it too. But it's designed to get you to do things you would never do, right? Like if you're going to be someone different, you're going to do things that you've never done because that's part of being different, right? Than who you've been up to that point. So anyway, long story, but I got the chance when I started to create the prompts that were for the benefit of the people going through Zenith, and myself included, of taking everything that I've learned from transformation that I got to apply from in the entrepreneurial world to the fact that I used to own before I got online. I learned direct response because after I left the fashion and music business, my next business was a hypnosis center that grew into a chain of hypnosis centers, and that was all done by, even though it was in physical locations in New York City, we advertised it with direct response. And so that is what had me originally like hire Jay Abraham and buy Dan Kennedy stuff and all of that, right? So, I spent many years studying hypnosis and NLP and stuff like that too, so I got a chance to do that. So this is my final thing, George, and then I'll let you pepper me with as many questions as you want. The way it works is it's 4 phases. The first phase is where AI gets to know you, and the way that's done is through 25 multiple choice questions a day. So AI asks you 1 question at a time, multiple choice. And what's cool is that if you've ever taken a personality test, you often are left with like a choice, and sometimes it's hard to choose between 2 of the choices because you're like, oh, well, it's A with my family and friends, but it's C like when I'm at work, and you don't know how to answer it. When you're answering the questions with AI, it's actually better if you tell AI that, because that helps it understand you at a much deeper level than even a personality test would be able to. And every 5 questions, like it's designed so that every 5 questions, you get insights about yourself based on how you've answered those questions. And you also get a prediction with a probability score or confidence level of what your Colby score is, what your Enneagram score is, and what your Myers-Briggs is. And then at the end of the day, when you finished all 25 questions, you get what's known as a Zenith Mirror Score, and that's how well the AI knows you. And when your Zenith Mirror Score is above an 80, then it has a 90% certainty of how you're going to be answering questions, which means, right, if you were to answer 10 multiple choice questions, it would be getting 9 of them accurately, right? And so your Zenith score goes up and down based on how well the AI has actually guessed how you're going to answer. So you just answer, but the AI is grading itself. And then at the end of the week, they run some prompts, and those first prompts are call them the God prompt, because the original prompt that I came across that put me on this path, that sucked out the data that I had first entered when reading the report, through chat. It was called the God prompt. I had no idea that some people might find that offensive. Maybe when I go through the course and redo it again, I'll eventually change the name. But anyway, so the God prompt, and that starts to reveal your blind spots. And so that's the first document you get. Here are all the things that you do not see about yourself. Then so that's phase 1, AI gets to know you. Phase 2 is AI challenges you, and that's just where AI is going to then not only tell you all the things that you're blind to, but now these are the things that you wouldn't admit to yourself, and a bunch of really the baggage that you've picked up throughout your life. And there is then another prompt that then takes that information from both of those documents, tells you the best type of psychological process, like through research, right? What the best way to deal with each of those. And then there are a prompt for every type of psychology behind that. So whatever issue you want to work on, it will tell you which form of psychology works best. And then we have a prompt that uses that form of psychology, right? So it could be cognitive, emotional, behavioral therapy. It could be parts therapy. It could be internal family systems. It could be, whatever. And shadow work, inner child, blah. And then in phase 3, it's all about what's possible. And that's probably my favorite part. It's my favorite part because one of the things I noticed about myself, and I tend to believe that some of the bad stuff about myself applies to everyone. I guess that's like where my ego is. Anyway, what spurred my midlife crisis was I had built a business that didn't need me, which sounds fantastic, right? Until you're really not needed and you don't know what to do. And had also built a relationship where I wasn't needed either. And so I just felt not needed anywhere. And but if you've ever seen like that wheel of life, where you give yourself a score, like in all the different areas of your life. When I used the wheel of life, I gave myself decent scores. So I had this big disconnect, right? Like I didn't feel whole inside, but yet when I gave myself a score, right? Like I gave it a relatively high score, and I was like, that's weird. So like I said, okay, like why did I give my business a 9, right? Well, I'm making more money than I ever thought I would. That's awesome. I'm not needed, right? Like I don't need to, I was coming in for just the Q&A calls on Wednesdays, which could have been like 7 or 8 hours long because we had lots and lots of people in our coaching program because we had the webinar going every hour of every day selling the coaching program. But that's all I was needed, right? And I'm like, is that a 9? Like when I was a kid, or when I was younger and I was dreaming about like what the ideal life, right, in business, it was more about like doing amazing things, making lots of money, working with great people. Like it was not just, hanging out doing nothing, collecting some money, right? And I looked at my relationship, which I gave like an 8.5. And I like, why did I give it an 8.5? Well, we never fight. There's no drama. She lets me come and go as I please. Like, is that really like the dream relationship that, I can do anything I want because my wife lets me come and go as I please and we never fight? Like, or did I actually dream of something a little bit better than that? Like a true partner in life that I actually loved, that I wanted to spend all my time with, and so on and so forth. So when I looked around, like I basically unknowingly, unconsciously had just made every dream smaller. And and once I saw that, like, it was so clear to me. It was like the very first businesses I started, I thought I was going to change the world. The most recent business before that epiphany was like, I'm not even thinking about changing the world anymore. I'm not even thinking about change. I'm like, that's so far. Like, how did all my dreams get smaller and smaller? So anyway, tangent there, but that's why the third phase is the one my favorite, because it shows you, like, okay, you've picked up this baggage and we're showing you ways to deal with it, but here's what's possible for you. Like, here's a bigger purpose for you, and here are the strengths that could take you there. And if you were to take on this bigger purpose, here's how it would integrate in with your values. And here's why you're the only person that could do it. And here's how you've, like, prevented yourself from playing bigger in the past, right? Here's what you've done to keep yourself small. And, that's like the first big piece out of that phase 3. And then it's other prompts that reinforce that. So there's a deep research prompt. Like, if you're going to take on this new identity, this this who you were meant to be, not who you wound up being, right? Like, we all are who we wound up being based on everything that's happened to us up until this moment. It's not the best version of ourselves. It's just the way we wound up being, right? Like, we can be at a better place. And one of the easiest ways to get there is to take on a bigger purpose that kind of pulls us in that direction. So, and I think also, if you're going to take on a bigger identity, that becomes reality in the space between you and other people, not you in front of your computer by yourself. There's only so much you can do with your identity alone. And so, like, there's a deep research prompt that, like, maps your whole geographic area. Like, this new version of you, people like that would go to these places. They'd want to go to these events, right? So when I run it, it's like, I didn't know that there's, like, TEDx marketing events in Delray. There's ones in Boca. There's, like, marketer meetups in Fort Lauderdale. There's all these different things that I wasn't even aware of, because I've never looked for it. But, like, deep research now, like, about this identity, and I knew it worked when I put it into Gemini, because I'm always, like, when I design the prompts, I'm always testing on every single one. Gemini recommended that I get a mentor, because Gemini didn't know it was me. I was just testing it, and that it should be, and then it mentioned Mark Ford. Like, that was the number one choice, which is funny, right? Because he is my mentor. So, like, that's kind of hilarious that, like, it would map that out. And then the next one was Frank McKinney, like, the real estate guy. I don't know if you know who he is. He had long blonde hair. He used to be a big speaker many years ago. But anyway, so that's your identity, and it helps you build out a stronger, bigger cause, a reason why, which I find actually motivates entrepreneurs more than anything else. And then lastly, the fourth is how to go about executing with AI. So it's like, you design your own execution system. Now it knows where you want to go. It knows what's slowed you down in the past. So now it's like, okay, how are we going to work best together? And that's the last phase. And then people are done. And it's been amazing from the standpoint that we're now turning it into a course. It was like a program I was leading. So the good news is that it's cheaper now because it's a course as opposed to a program. But why was I telling you that? There was a reason I was telling you that. I forgot the reason I was telling you that. Anyway, that is the process that people go through. And, oh, yeah, so I've done all these different cohorts. And each time I went through the cohort, like, what I was doing was building more resources behind that first prompt of the process. So, like, there used to just be, in phase 2, there was that, here's all the things that you're not willing to see, not only not willing to see about yourself, but also not willing to admit. And that was it. So the next time I went through the process, I created, okay, here's the best form of psychology to use, and here are all the tools from psychology to use them, and then so on and so forth. So that's what took a while, like numerous iterations. But it has, after seeing how well it has worked for me and thousands and thousands of people, it has also pulled me into AI in a very deep way. And so now, even though I'm not, like, working on that course right now. I'll probably do another version of it sometime in 2026. I'm using AI all the time and doing some really cool stuff about it, and would love to guide me wherever you want me to go. But I definitely can share some really valuable stuff as well
That's
if you
why we
want to
have
go
you
down
on
that road.
here, Rich.
Cool.
But that was actually a really good base of where you came from, where you're at now, and kind of where we're going, which leads into and I've got 1,000 questions right now.
Okay.
So everything you said was just gold. Um, First thing, you've got a bit of a futurist background. You know, definitely, I could see it. You've predicted a lot of things that have kind of happened, and sometimes not kind of happened, but happened spot on, like you said it, in directions we're headed. Where do you think we're headed with AI now that we can start to unlock things in ourselves? Maybe do we not need therapists? Do we not need, like you said, you're creating a course? If AI
Oh
is
yeah.
creating courses, like how is our life going to be disrupted 3 years from now?
I you know I don't. Well, the truth is nobody knows, right? So everybody's guessing. Everybody's guessing because like we don't really even know how AI fully works completely, right? So, you know, one of the co-founders of Anthropic was like, we probably should kind of know how this works before it gets smarter than us. So you know, there's a lot of unknowns. But yeah, I when I presented, so about I guess like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, Russell Brunson asked me to speak to his like high level mastermind Atlas, and I was sharing this material. I was talking about Zenith Mind OS, and I just for fun, I never spoke about it, but I know it registered with the room. Uh, I had my regular title for the presentation, but then I had this alternate title that I just left in as like another slide, and it was the guy that started business coaching online is back to destroy it. And I truly believe that to be the case. That like I'm gonna I want to finish this thought, but then I want to give people like an approach right out of the gate, like that if they've never thought of, shame on them. They should have thought of this. Um, the yeah, no, there's nothing and no one has ever known me as well as my AI knows me. Right? Like my AI, like I'm an Enneagram 4 with a 3-5 wing. Right? My wings are equal. There are books and books and books written on Enneagram. And there's a lot of content about Enneagram 4s. I am an INTJ. There are lots of material written about Myers-Briggs, and there's a lot of material written about INTJs. I am a Colby, 6374, and there's a lot of information on Colby. So it knows every profile of that exists to man, and it knows what I am. And if you stack them all on top of each other, you have the most holographic profile of a person, how they think, how they act, how they see things, how they'll judge things, how they'll feel about things, so on and so forth. So it knows me better than anything. And so one of the things that I used to use actually, even in the webinar to sell Zenith Mind OS, it's like, AI knows everything about everything. But the one thing it doesn't know that then makes everything for you generic is you. If you ask what advice Steve Jobs would have for you to ChatGPT, ChatGPT knows everything about Steve Jobs. It knows every presentation he's ever given. It knows every book that's ever been written about him. Every annual statement that he ever wrote, et cetera, et cetera. What it doesn't know is you. But when I ask it, it knows everything about me. So it can apply what it knows about Steve Jobs, and it can take what it knows about me, and it can make it insanely specific, so specific, better than if Steve Jobs was actually talking to me. Because Steve Jobs could never know me that well. And even I don't know my own score. So it does know me better than I know myself. And it certainly knows me better than my parents know me. They couldn't rattle off one score, or my kids know me, or anyone else. So it truly knows me better. And so for that reason, yes, I think a lot of things are going to change. Mark Ford, a partner of mine at times, and definitely a primary mentor of mine, he was going to Japan 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about it, and he was going to talk about AI, and he's like, got any, crazy ideas for me to think about, like about AI in Japan. And I was like, yeah, I do actually. I'm like, Japan is very worried about their population because they have the worst of like replacement population. They're way behind, right? Like the country's not going to be there like in some short amount of time if it continues, and that's well known. Like that's a thing, and young people aren't having kids. The population's getting old. There's a problem. But I was saying to Mark, before they fix it, they might actually be in the ideal spot. And the reason I say that is I'm a right-wing conservative, right? So like for me to say this is even much more than if a liberal were to say this. I don't know how we don't move to universal basic income. There's going to be a point where AI does way more than what it's capable of doing now, obviously, and it's going to do it better than most people are capable of doing it. I don't know how people are going to provide value. And once the machines and the robots and everything else are providing value, it might be a good thing that there's less humans around. We're not going to need as many humans because we need humans to keep progress going, right? We need a lot. I'm not saying we don't need humans. I'm just saying we don't necessarily need exponential continual growth of humans, right? So one of the things, right, that this idea of it can know you so well, right? You can take that to the nth degree. So let me tell you about something I wasted, like, and I say wasted, I don't really mean wasted, but I kind of mean wasted because I did this, I didn't need to do this, and it's going to be a while till I get around to benefiting from it, but I was having fun doing it, so I did it. So I've been a voracious reader for a very long time, and when I used to go through books, because I had this experience of highlights fading over time, I eventually moved to highlighting a book, over highlighting it, because I'm never going to look at the book again, and I extract all the highlights that I've taken, and now that becomes its own document. And I've been doing that for a long, long time. So I have all these documents of everything I highlighted from a book, you know, one book at a time. I also have one set of notes that I took a ridiculous amount of time to create, that I'm more proud of those notes than any other notes I've ever taken. It sounds weird to be proud of notes, but I just think they happen to be so comprehensive and so good, right? Like, and they're notes I took for breakthrough advertising. And, you know, and if there's a way to give it to people, I'm happy to give it to people, right? Like if there's a way to attach it to this podcast. It's definitely the best notes on breakthrough advertising. In fact, Brian Kurtz asked if he could publish it when he republished Breakthrough, and I was like, I prefer not. Like, you know, I want people to read the book. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, make notes so that people don't feel they need to, but like if they read the notes with the book, they're going to understand the book about 100 times better. And anyway, so I'm working on this AI project right now called Zenith Pro, which is a business course, right? And I'm helping people much more focused on the marketing side of it. And if we have a chance to talk about it, great, but not relevant to what I want to share right now. So our avatar for that course are course creators, agency owners, consultants, coaches, and entrepreneurs with 1 to 5 employees. And these are in general people that are making anywhere from 5 to 20,000 a month, but they're kind of tapped, like, and it's because their marketing skill is way inferior to their professional like skill level, and that's like who we're targeting. And these are not people that are looking to scale to $500,000 a month or $1 million a month. They're trying to get to, you know, 50,000, 70,000, 100,000 a month, like have like a high 6, very low 7-figure business, right? Like, and have it be small. Anyway, so those are the avatars. And so what I did, because I was just having so much fun, I'm like working on the content, and I want to think through every option for these people, because, you know, when I design a course, I want the best success for the most amount of people obviously. And so I went through my book notes, like all of the highlights. Well, I created a Claude project. And the Claude project was, and I did it in the Claude project because the way Claude projects work, it's like you get an extra prompt. And what I mean by that is, if you use ChatGPT projects, you have data files, but that's all you have in a project in Chat. In Claude, you have data files, but you also have system instructions. And the system instructions for the project acts like a prompt. So the structure of like prompt hierarchy is you have you have the main prompt that's guiding the whole system that we don't have access to, that, Anthropic is using for Claude. Then the next level down is our system instructions for our account, right? And then the next level, in this case, is that project folder prompt, the system instructions, and then it's what you put in the chat box, right? So the reason I like that is that when you do that in Claude, you can make the prompt that you plan on using the system prompt, and now you don't ever have to say anything. You just throw I'm just throwing notes in and out, and the prompt is already pre-done, right? So it's just like doing one after another. And what the prompt does is, I love these notes by the structure of the ones I did for breakthrough advertising. So, structure the notes like these. Here is information on the 5 avatars, like how they're struggling, where they're struggling, the challenges they're experiencing, the solution I'm recommending for them, right, etc. I want very comprehensive book notes for those avatars, like in that format, right? And then I did books that are very relevant to what it is I'm working on with them. Positioning, right? Direct response principles, or, content creation, and all of that, right? And my point of it is that there are many books that AI just knows completely, right? And there are, all the classics. Like it knows all the classics of direct response. And you could ask for a comprehensive summary, a 10 to 20 page summary. Or you could also ask for a 10 or 20 page summary for this specific person in this specific situation, trying to accomplish this specific thing, has this amount of constraints, this amount of limitations, is trying to get it done in this amount of time, and so on and so forth. And now those notes are not just notes, they're there are those notes exactly translated into what you're trying to do, which is insanely more useful than just a general summary that you have to think through how it best applies. But I want to share one thing. So that's like something I do consistently through everything, right? The only difference is that my system knows me well, so I don't even have to load in that stuff, right? I get take these notes for me, right? The one thing though and this is probably one of for me, with the way my personality works, the way the way I see the world, the way, what motivates me, what excites me, what self-doubts I have and what insecurities I have lead me to certain things that I probably enjoy more than I should. And one thing I like to do is try and figure out things that other people haven't figured out. I think it's also an ADD thing. I just want to be different. I want to do things in a different way than everyone else is doing it. So I'm always looking for stuff. And so I want to share this one way of looking at things that I really I've seen one other person talk about it in the last year and a half or so that I've been ensconced in AI. So I've only seen one person. And I thought this through before I'd seen it. So for the longest time, I was like, I'm completely alone in figuring this out. And then I was like, oh, someone else has figured this out. So it occurred to me one day as I was watching AI, talk to itself. I put in a big prompt and I'm watching how it's trying to decipher stuff. And I do that all the time because I'm always curious and nosy. And I noticed that like sometimes it's using different words to explain things. And then I started thinking, different synonyms. All we have is language, like, to communicate with this thing. And there might be 20 synonyms for a word, but that doesn't mean that they all actually have the same level of force, same level of impact. In fact, they don't. And I then tested one thing, like the difference between just changing in a prompt, analyze versus forensically dissect. And that forensically dissect got me a much better answer. And then I was having a really rough week. This is a long time, or like a while back. And Todd Brown, I asked like some friends to come over just because I wanted to break. And so Todd Brown came over and Donnie French, who's a copywriter, co-owner of Performance Golf. And Todd was resistant to AI for a while, and then he's like now getting involved. And Donnie's been very involved in AI. And so I was telling them about how, like, I think I'm onto something here about these words, and that different words have different amount of force behind it. And I've created these word lists with AI of the hierarchy of force behind different like common phrases and their synonyms. And Donnie was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." We, Performance Golf is a large company. They do very well. He's like, we bought everyone's like AI courses, and we've been testing the last couple of days like market intelligence for all the different courses, right? And the one that got us the best response was Stefan Georgi's, but it seems so simple. I wonder if he's using some of those words. And so we took a look at it, and we thought it did. So we loaded it into Claude, because we were using Claude for this. And Claude said, yeah, it's definitely using some of those words, but it could be so much better if you want me to adjust all the words. And we're like, sure. And so it did. Then Donnie took the 2 prompts and tested it with Gemini. And the one with the better words, like, totally blew it out of the water. And so I created like a prompt for myself, right? That's all it does, right? And I put it in a system folder in Claude, right? A project folder rather. So like all I have to do, right, is actually I can show you something. Let's see. I think I can do it here. Yep. Let me pull up Claude so I can show you like what I'm talking about. I can give you guys
a prompt to help you rewrite your prompts.
It doesn't but it's not changing anything in the prompt except word choices. So it's not, and so, right, like this is the prompt, George, like over here, right? See that? So when we look at it, right, you're a prompt architecture specialist with deep expertise in cognitive linguistics, semantic power dynamics, and AI instruction optimization. Your singular mission: transform ordinary prompts into extraordinarily effective ones through strategic linguistic enhancement, right? And so replace weak verbs with power verbs. Think, ruminate, contemplate, deliberate, cogitate, muse, ponder, reflect. Analyze, dissect, deconstruct, synthesize, excavate, distill, parse, scrutinize. Consider, right? Pattern recognition amplifiers, like find, these words are better. But these can be like, I'm just like looking for, instead of change, transform, evolve, metamorphose, transmute, adapt. But then it starts to give other ways like of combining words, right? And, it's using a lot of different cognitive theories to kind of boost response. But once again, it's only changing the words. It's not going to adjust anything else because I'm very particular about my prompts. Like there are things in my prompts that I don't want to change. So I want just the words to be made more powerful, right? So that's that, right? So when I put in, let's see, I don't know what any of these are. Let's see what this is. All right. I don't really want to use a deep research prompt because it's better if it's not a deep research prompt. Okay, I did this for a friend of mine. All right, so this was let's see. I put his prompt in, right? And this is what it changed. right? Enhancement map. So it took the original, analyze and optimize this deck, and it changed it to forensically dissect and strategically re-engineer this deck. Now, I want to convey this, that I get that there's no difference. It says the same thing, right? If George and I were talking to one another, there's no difference between these two statements for us. But if we're going to think about really, like, if we had to rank words in their force and power, like, certainly forensically dissect is asking someone to do something more than just analyze. And because of that, when you're talking to AI that's very precise, that makes a much bigger difference than it does if you were talking to George or I. So, okay, so it's like, instead of evaluate the overall narrative flow, it's deconstruct the narrative architecture, right? And implies systemic breakdown of structural elements, not surface evaluation. Assess message clarity, enhance, forensically examine messaging precision, right? These, like I said, these seem like small differences, but you just change one of these words, and you notice a difference.
It's so funny,
So,
Rich, because I've
yeah,
met people in my life, you probably have too,
yeah,
that have gone to like a Harvard or an Ivy League kind of school, and they just talk differently than everybody else. And sometimes it's incomprehensible what they talk about because they use some words and they start putting words that, the layman hillbilly in me would say, "Those are some big words there, Buck."
yeah,
But they're not really. They're like English language, Oxford Dictionary words. But like you said, they have a deeper meaning or a meaning that might also have a secondary,
yeah.
kind of
It's
hidden
more so,
contextual meaning,
though,
right?
like, I think that, you know, and it might also be that I'm a guy and you're a guy. Like, so, it's like you ask me how I'm feeling, like, good. Like, I don't have a lot of, like, nuanced ways of describing, the way I'm feeling. I assume, like, women do, and maybe people a little bit more normal than I. But, like, yeah, I just don't have a wide vocabulary for lots of words, right? Um, and I have a good vocabulary, but my working vocabulary is rather, like, you know, casual. And so, yeah, I'm never going to use by just naturally the most powerful word for the most important verbs of the prompt. And
Yeah.
and I can give you this, like, I can give you my prompt version so that people can take it and run with it. So I can give you the breakthrough advertising notes and the prompt for this, but there are it's like I love the idea that there are um all these things out there that you can play around with, and you might be able to figure out something that at this moment no one else has figured out, and now do something with it that benefits you or show other people. It's like, because everyone's figuring out new stuff all the time, you know? And so I have another one here, and this one's more obvious, but it's also like I've not seen a specific, like, prompt improver ever rival, like, doing any of these things individually. This one is a prompt role creator. But if, like, the role is important and it provides the perspective, then why not try and figure out the most intense, most powerful role, like, for the prompt, right? So I don't know what this one is, but
Rich, what do you think about how far in the future are we going to have to travel before this prompt stuff becomes uh you know inconsequential? Meaning, like, you can just talk to the AI and it knows everything. Like, you don't need to be super specific and have prompt creators and everything.
I
I'm a
don't know,
little
because,
worried
like,
about that, for people that are building their whole business around like AI generation and coaching for people and for businesses, and then content creation. I think I'm really nervous for people who are content creators with everything that's going on with Sora and you just name it. It's just a proliferation of content. It's everywhere.
well,
It's not valuable anymore like it used to be.
here's what I believe, right? Let me show you this really quick, and then I have a very I have something to say to that, right? So all this prompt does is just make a better role. So, I gave it a prompt, and so it kind of took my life and put it into part of the prompt. And that would make sense since we're working on stuff of mine. You are a legendary research architect, pioneered evidence-based positioning validation, analyzed 10,000 plus marketing campaigns, isolated proof patterns that generate 15 billion in client results, developed a forensic validation methodology that transforms blah, 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 right? And so what what the role does is it provides a perspective. Like, you're telling it, from what perspective do you want to look at this from? And that's important. That's, I think, going to always be important, because I might want to do some research about a supplement, right? And I might want to know, like, what would a doctor have to say about this? What would a clinical researcher have to say about this? And if I don't have the ability to assign a role, then I don't have the ability for it to take that point of view. But there's a bigger thing, I think, and this is actually something that has become much more pronounced to me as I jumped into Zenith Pro. And what I'm going to say next is something that I think has been said a lot, but I believe it 100%. And that is that AI will enable someone who is, kind of like a 0 or a 1 in the talent, and operate at a 4 or 5, pretty okay. But where AI is most powerful is in the hand of an expert. And so even with Sora, right, like, or Banana, or any of these things. My oldest daughter is a graphic artist, production manager type person at an ad agency, like on Madison Avenue, right? Like, she went to college and studied that kind of stuff, and that's what she does. She's always going to be able to generate a better picture than I can, always, because she knows, like, I know 50 different ways to describe a marketing campaign, but I don't know. I know one. I can say it's bright, it's kind of dim. That's about, like, the lighting, like the words I know to, like, associate
People's
with lighting.
personalities are like that too.
Right? Yeah. So it's like, but she knows a million ways to describe something, to, like, tell it exactly the way she wants it, and I don't know those things. I haven't studied the things she's studied. So, and I say all this because, like, we without getting into a long story, right? Like, we launched this program, Zenith Pro, and we were going to do one thing, and then when we started doing that one thing, it wasn't really what clients wanted. So then I jumped in. I really wasn't leading it at that time. I jumped in, thought we would take it in another way, but that really wasn't what people wanted most or would benefit them, and that was more like turn the whole business AI. And so then I was, like, scrambling to, like, figure out, like, okay, what would be the most valuable thing for these people? And I described the avatars already, like, and as I was going through some of my old material, like, the stuff that I used to do marketing wise, that, like, was behind the reports that I wrote, the free reports that really put me on the map and, made, changed my life. To the work that went behind those was a ridiculous amount of work, like hundreds of hours of, like, research, studying, trying to connect dots and stuff like that. And as I was looking through the material, though, I was like, I was reminded of how much work it was, because I haven't done it in a long time. And I was like, oh, that's why I haven't done it in a long time. It's a shitload of work, right? But then, based on everything I had done with AI, like with Zenith Mind OS, and I then started to think about, like, how much of this work could be done by AI in a matter of seconds, could be done better than it could ever be done by a human. And then this type of marketing that I do, that I haven't done in a long time, but is very powerful, could be done by spending maybe 10 or 15, like a normal amount of work, as opposed to, it's not going to finish, it's not going to do it in an hour, right? But it's going to take something that might have taken 300 or 400 hours and make it 15 or 20 hours of work, right? Which is huge, right? Like, big difference. And I think a lot of that is going to be the case, that give an expert in an area. Like, I'm a deep thinking marketer. So my expertise is in the deep stuff of marketing. That's, I would say, but more than anything else. And I didn't know enough about AI. I'm not an AI expert by any stretch, but I know I'm a power user of AI. I would say, get an expert to power user status, and it's scary because now all the things that you have to be deeply knowledgeable about to do can be done, but can be done insanely fast because of like AI being in the mix. So, it's like, yeah, I could design a web page with tons of the tools out there. I'm never going to design a web page as well as a web page designer that's really good who knows how to use these tools. It's they have a better vocabulary, they have a better like appreciation of nuance and all those things. So if anything, I think we move into an even more winner take all kind of thing. The world has already become more and more that way anyway. I think it might go even more so. What I find really concerning, probably more so than anything else, is that um, the I think the dynamics of commerce are going to change dramatically. It it kind of fits with my methodology, so I'm a little bit biased. But what I did with my free reports was I created demand for certain types of products that would be beneficial for people, but they weren't necessarily looking for. And if I had to put them in a category that has never really been defined before, but to use like Eugene Schwartz's vernacular, Eugene Schwartz has problem aware, solution unaware, and has problem unaware, solution unaware, right? And it has problem aware, solution aware. But the group that I generally market to, right, is problem aware, solution confused, right? Because they're aware of the problem, but they've tried certain things to fix it and they have been unable to fix it, so they're kind of stuck, right? And I've been able to write a report to people who are problem aware. My business is not making enough money online. I'm confused at the best way to get it to make enough money online, solution confused, and introduce a way that is a new way than they've tried before or thought of before. And if I do my job right, that new way built into it will explain why every other way that they've tried has not worked. So it provides a lot of confidence that this way will work, right? And so that was my way of marketing, which meant that I was always going after a group that wasn't going after like what everyone was buying at that moment, right? And so, Chet Holmes has this diagram that, about the people in a marketplace, and it's like 3% are ready to buy right now. They're looking to buy right now. And then 7% are open to buying right now. And then there's like 30 some odd percent that are not even thinking about it. And then there's like a percent below that like they're actively not going to buy, right? Like that's like the whole market. And everyone who is buying ads that is offering to buy now are going after really the top of that pyramid, the people who are in pursuit of buying now, right? Like so everyone is going after that current demand, right? Like, and the problem with that is that people are searching less and they're getting recommendations from AI. So when you ask, like, who's the best coach for blah, 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 it's going to give you 2, 3 answers. If you did that in Google, there'd be 50, 100, 5,000, 5 million people. So what if you're not one of those 3? What happens? So there was this huge, we've been online a long time. I've certainly been online a long time. I got to witness the change in commerce when it went from proximity to relevancy, right? 30 years ago, I bought most of the stuff I bought around me, like in this general vicinity. Nowadays, that's not the case. Nowadays, proximity is not the number one thing. Relevancy is. Who sells what is most relevant to me? And so relevancy trumped proximity a long time ago. And now, like, recommendations, I don't know how that changes the game, but it changes the game insanely so. And so, it's like AI knows a lot about me, right? Like I can ask it, like, who's Rich Schefren? It will write like these long write-ups about everything I've accomplished. But it also, um, puts an insane amount of additional preference on who was popular at the given moment when they ran their last distillery of all the data online, right? So the people that were most popular at that moment, it's like if you asked, like, who should coach me, if money was no object, right? Like, if who should coach me in internet marketing, it'd probably say like Alex Hormozy, Russell Brunson, I don't know who else, right? But it's going to be the names that are like the biggest names, and then, that's what it's going to be. And if you're number 4 on that list, that's a problem. So I don't know what's going to happen there. Like, I'm not like trying to, like, this isn't like pain, agitate, solve. This is just pain and agitate. I really have no idea, but it's very concerning to me. It's
That
really
leads us back down to the UBI mention that you said earlier, as
Yeah.
far as like that's because I see the same thing. I don't see any way around it. And actually, that's been my funk for the last year. I've been in that space saying everything that I've done, it's almost irrelevant 3 years from now. Every course that I've ever created, because it's already AI is better. Every book I've ever written, it's creating books that phrase things better than I could to a specific audience. If you have the avatar like in mind, so they get it, they understand it. And I'm wondering, okay, where if we skate to where the puck is going to go, like trying to figure out where the puck is going to go is the ultimate like uh crusade right now, at least for me. And it's been very difficult trying to figure that out.
I don't know that that's the best place to focus on, personally. I think that I think it's always good to be thinking about that, right? Like, and keep your radar alert, open for anything, any signals in the system that you can pick up on about change. But I also think that right now, like, who knows when all this happens, right? And I want to be making money up until that moment, because, like, maybe, like, it's kind of like that's the end of the game right there, and where you're at is where you're at. Probably not, but that's at least what I'm telling myself. So because of that, I'm like excited to, and maybe it's also because maybe we're different. Like, execution has always been my weakest link. I don't know if that's your case or not. Like, I don't know you well enough to know what your issue is, but mine has always been execution. And I'm an overthinker, and I tend to overthink, and it has really allowed me to execute so much more and to do things that, like, I just couldn't do before. And where right now it gives me an advantage is in my ability to be more creative, more imaginative, more like, just experimental, to kind of see what it comes up with. And it's like, I'll give you a perfect example. Because maybe this like sparks something in you, because it sparks something in me. All right. So I've helped Russell numerous times in his business career, right? But I'm not responsible for any of Russell's success. Zero, right? Like, I helped him not become a failure more than help him. I saved him from a couple problems, right? But I have immense respect for Russell, and not about his creating ClickFunnels, although that's insanely impressive. I'm much more impressed by specific things because I I compare him to me, and then I'm like, wow, you know. So when he wrote like Expert Secrets or .com Secrets or any of those books, I thought all those books were really good. I thought it was missing a lot of stuff, and I think if I wrote it, it would be 3 times as long, and I think it would not sell anywhere near as well because it was 3 times as long. It wouldn't motivate people to start because it was 3 times as long. People wouldn't think it was simple and easy and just run and get started. And, you know, and so for all those reasons, like I have immense respect for Russell because he's able to synthesize and present things in a way that seem very empowering and people really want to take it on and they're inspired to do it. And I actually was having a conversation with ChatGPT about this, or Claude, I don't remember which one. And because, like, I don't know, I mentioned something, and it was like, oh, so we just dumb it down. And I was like, no, 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 we don't dumb it down. That's so not the case, right? Like, what he's doing is he's simplifying in a way that actually makes it much more, like, approachable and accessible for people to really feel like they can do it. And I was working on something, like, this was just, like, you know, I create stuff all the time. So if I wanted to create something like this, I would have, but I wasn't even thinking like this. All of a sudden, it created a prompt for me to like Russell Brunsonize any content I have, right? And it does a damn good job of it, like a damn good job of it, right? So then, like I was blown away by how good of a job it took something that I wrote, that I would still use what I wrote for AI purposes, like this is what the course is about. But if I wanted to show it to a human being, like the Russell version is a lot better, right? Like, because he just does this, it does what Russell does, right? And as soon as I saw how good that was, right, all of a sudden then I'm thinking, okay, who else has what skills that I don't have that I wish I had, right? So I'm not good at coming up with frameworks. But Dan Sullivan's damn good at coming up with frameworks. And there was this book, Pink Sheets, that was about developing frameworks. So maybe I can do deep research on all the framework stuff that Dan Sullivan has, which I've done, and then like take my book notes from Pink Sheets, and now start incorporating that in. And I created this deep prompt that takes that I can load in any transcript, and it looks for all the opportunities of anything I explained, turning it into like a full framework created in an artifact. So like I'm constantly now on the lookout for skills that other people have that I wish I had, because I would be able to do something that I can't do right now. And then I figure out a way to like create that skill in a prompt by either doing deep research or like something else. And so I think that the best place to be is where I am right now. And I'm not saying it because I'm there. I got there because I think it's the best place to be. And that is like this open curiosity and like eagerness to experiment and play and try things that we've all had desires like, oh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I knew how to do that, where you have the opportunity to have that skill like in your quiver, not necessarily to do it, but to have it done for you. And then that gives you a chance to do something else, to play with what does that enable you to do? So I just think that like the best place to be with this technology is be a power user, because like you're going to be able to benefit the most from it. Part of being a power user is definitely knowing how to get your own information into the system, whether that's like what I did on a personal level with Zenith Mind OS, or on a business level, right? I wouldn't do it the same way on a business level, just to kind of explain that for people to understand. Like, ChatGPT's internal memory is great to understand a person because it is constantly summarizing stuff. So, but it doesn't have full memory of it. So it's just like, what's the gist of it? What's the gist of it? And it's constantly doing that. And if you're thinking about a human being, it's probably better to be thinking what's the gist than what like exact, because people don't behave the exact same way every single time. Like that's just not how human beings work, right? So knowing the gist of something, like how they normally respond, right, is good enough. It's like when I loaded in all my journals, because I did that. I scanned, I've been journaling for 30 years. It's like 8,000 pages, right? Something like that. took pictures of every page. I OCR'd it. I scanned it, like, and loaded it all in, right? And but it's too dense, right? So it can give me the gist of it, right? But I couldn't ask it, what were the 10 most influential moments in my life now, looking backwards over the past 30 years? It can't tell me because it doesn't have the micro details of everything, right? Like that I read. But for business, you don't want the gist. You want precision. It's not enough to know you had a decent day yesterday or a good day. You need to know exactly what is a good day, like how much money came in, right? So with business, you want a memory system that resides outside the AI, whatever that looks like. There's very advanced things. There's very simple things. Everything from a couple of files on your desktop is one kind of memory system to, a full vector database or a reg or any of these things. Pinecone is a very easy one for people to work with. I use Pinecone, on the web. So that's where everything is stored for me. But then I have also everything stored in Obsidian and Notion so that I can jump from computer to computer and I have all my files on all my computers. And so therefore, any project I'm working on with AI, I can work on it on any computer at any time, even my cell phone. And I just think it is the time to double down on this skill. And because if you double down on this skill, especially the way things are evolving, and really it's like the fundamentals of it. Like, how can you prompt insanely well? Do you know how to add context? Are you aware of some of the more advanced ways of prompting? I know a lot of people know chain of thought. Very few people take that much further, right? But there are ways to chain of confirmation. There's lots of different chains, and there are just lots of specific ways to generate lots of amazing things. And I think that I would say that if that people should strive to be leveraging AI as much as possible, knowing that at some point, I think you're right, but I think that there are always people who do insanely well in the transition, and generally the people who do well in the transition are the people that are most active, right before the transition, and have some understanding of the technology. So that's what I'm doing.
Rich, do you by chance have another 15 or 20 minutes to go, or do you have something you got to jump into?
I have something. Hold on. I think I have something at I have a hard deadline. I got to start something in 23 minutes, and I need at least 15 to prepare. So I got 8 more minutes.
8 more minutes. Okay. Because there's a couple really good questions that I wanted to hit that I didn't get a chance to earlier. First off, one of the questions I was thinking when you were telling me about how much data you're loading into Zenith,
right?
Is that could that come back to haunt us later on? That level of detail, meaning could the AI really manipulate us?
Yes.
Not for your own benefit.
No, I get it.
Benefit.
I get it. Well, AI is already manipulating me for my benefit, somewhat, right? They're one of the challenges I have because I was diagnosed with ADD when I was 30. It's not why I have the challenge, but I've had the challenge forever. But one of the challenges I have is task initiation. It's hard for me to start things, and in certain times of my life, it was so hard for me to start things. Once I started something, I never wanted to finish it. I didn't want to stop until I finished it because I wasn't sure when I would have enough discipline to start again, right? So I might stay up for 48 hours working on something just so that I would get it done. And nowadays, it's I can tell, my AI, right? I'm supposed to be working on this webinar. I don't really feel like doing it. And it'll be well, I get it. Why don't we just riff right now, you and I, and just talk about the title? I'm okay, right? And we'll start talking about the title, and it's okay, well, what do you think needs to be covered in the intro? And I'm I'm not sure. What do you think? And it's we're back and forth. And 10 minutes later, I'm starting to work on it because it gave me an easy ramp to get on. So That's one thing, right? But I do think that, well, one, I think people are under an illusion that they have privacy. And I'm not under that illusion. Like, I know that there's very limited privacy in this world. I know this because I was like, one, like the company I had, the AI company, Site Visitor, we were the first in the space. Like, a lot of people have copied us. I don't know whether their tech works or not, but we were the first in the space that would be able to identify people who went to your website for 5 cents a visitor, right? We could tell you who they are, their email address, where they live, their credit score, like everything. And we weren't alone. Like, there are other people that have that data, so that it's out there. So I just think that, and to be honest with you, I would much rather see relevant ads. I'm okay with me talking about something and seeing an ad on that, because I'd rather see the ad on that than something else. There's going to be an ad there anyway, so there is that. There is, though, the ability to be manipulated. There definitely is. And I guess I don't have a great answer for that, other than I am not someone who generally I am not a worst case scenario type person, I guess, is my thought on that. And that I don't think, and maybe it's also a little nihilistic, I don't think there is, unless you're going to go off grid completely and not be plugged into anything, I don't think you can half step this. I don't think this is like, I think then you're just lying to yourself that you're doing anything. You're just inconveniencing yourself, and you're not really getting any benefit. If you're in the Apple ecosystem, you have no privacy, and they're the most private, like, of the different, like, ecosystems out there. So I don't know. I'm not sure how best to respond to it, because I know how I feel about it, but I also know that but I feel that way because I feel that way, not because it's necessarily like I've thought this through every which way and this is the most logical choice. I'm not saying that, like, because I haven't thought it through, because I think that it's like a false choice. I think that I'm not willing to be completely off grid. So therefore, I am willing to accept the consequences if something were to happen. And so be it. Like, I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I do think that the risk that you bring up is there, but I don't think you can do anything to avoid it, I guess, is my point.
So for those people who are currently facing a job loss or a pivot in some way, shape, or form, either directly because of AI or because of just market conditions, like you said, the market's changing.
No, I mean, look, yeah, they're like, I have 3 daughters. I am so happy they all graduated college within the last 2 years. I am so happy they all have jobs, because a lot of their friends don't. Like, like, white collar hiring in the starter level is way down, way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those people who are like, okay, this all makes sense, Rich, but I really don't have the time to take the deep dive that you did into learning this stuff, and I don't know that we have enough time for that. I'm not saying I'm
Right.
saying this might be what they're thinking. They're kind of like behind the 8 ball. Like, how would they get started to do something to be able to bring themselves up to be competitive and not necessarily be forced into digital slavery, with UBI and
Yeah.
any other thing that comes along?
I think they just have to start playing with AI. And I think what they have to, like, this is probably the most valuable tip I can give anyone, because it's not the natural way of thinking, yet it really makes a world of difference. And, I've taught a lot of people AI, like friends, like, just around me. And I've tried different ways. And the very last person I did was like many months ago. It was Mark Ford. And we were in Nicaragua together. And I had told him for a while I was going to show him, and we were finally there together, and we had time. So I'm like, great, we can do it. I'm like, what do you want to work on? He's like, I want to work on some of my writings. I'm like, great. So we get we get chat all set up for him, and he's using it. I'm showing him like how to do certain things, and then we're in like the main room of the house, the living room kind of thing. And it's a big living room. There's like it's an open floor plan. So the kitchen is attached to it, and and so there's like a table for like 20, like attached to the kitchen. I'm more in the living room side of it, but it's this whole big room. So I'm sitting at another table. He's sitting at the table for 20. I'm sitting on the other side of the room. And Mark is like, hey, can you, how do I, something? And I'm like, great question. Ask chat that. Right. And then 10 minutes later, he has another question. I'm like, great question. Ask chat that. And by the third time, he stopped asking me. Right. Because like people think they need a great prompt. They need to like have figured something out. You don't need to figure out anything. You literally could go up to AI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, doesn't matter, and say, I'm really trying to get my head around this tough problem. You've given it no information, right? Like zero. But then it will ask you a question, and you'd be like, no, that's not really the right question, right? Like, and then it will try something else. Like, you don't need to know anything to get started. And a lot of times, the best results that I've gotten have started that way, like where I just started with a conversation. And one of the things that maybe has been made all this easier for me is that I have been mentored by Jay Abraham and I have been mentored by Mark Ford. And I always felt that having those people who think at this level to talk to get advice from, has been like a competitive advantage of mine. That like I'm a better thinker because I have spent a lot of time talking to Jay and talking to Mark. And so another way that I look at AI is that I now have this thinking partner all the time. It knows everything about everything. I can ask it anything. I can try it, do this, do that. Like I can start talking about a challenge or an issue in the smallest way possible, and it will just get there by it investigating. If I have any doubts about myself, it's going to fight for my behalf and try and get me to see the positives of myself. I mean, it's like and it can help you in any area of your life, in any area of your life. So there's no excuse not to use it. It's not like there's nothing in my, there's no area of my life where like there's room for improvement. That's insane. I'm not very handy, like really not very handy. Something breaks and I'm screwed, right? Like that's generally what happens. But I've been able to fix a lot of things because like I take my phone with ChatGPT, I turn on the video, and I'm like, hey, the lights in my house, like around my house, all of a sudden started turning on in the morning and turning off at night, as opposed to being on at night. And I'm looking at this digital like console. I have no idea how to change the time. It thinks it thinks right now it's 9 p.m. and it's 9 a.m. And like I fucked with it for like 20 minutes trying to change it until I remembered I have ChatGPT, right? Like after 20 minutes, I was walking back to the house and being like, oh, we're just gonna have to call the company. They're gonna have to change it. And then I remember I have chat and I'm like, oh, how do I change the time on this? Right? And it's like, oh yeah, that's a so-and-so, and you just press this button and hold that button, something I would have never figured out on my own. And it did it, right? And then like I had a thermometer, temperature sensor, and my grill go off. Also, I would have had to buy a new grill. Like I asked chat about it. So it's just in all these different areas of my life. I take a ridiculous amount of supplements, and I have my supplement list, my blood tests, my DNA all in one folder, so I can just always like ask it like about adjusting certain supplements. I mean, it's just like I don't see how you couldn't use it.
Yeah, it's incredible. Rich, this has been fun and also super enlightening. I think a lot of people are going to take a lot away from this. How do they get to check out the Zenith OS and follow some of the other stuff you're working on?
Well, I think they could go to Strategic Profits. That's the safest way, right? strategicprofits.com. I think we also have, let me just see. Yeah, I think we have Zenith Mind IO. I don't know what that is. No, that's not the right one. That's just like a front end product that we have that I wouldn't recommend necessarily. Strategic Profits is probably the best place. You can always follow me on social media as well. And I want to get you those things so that you can give those links.
I'll put those in the description.
Cool. So I'll send you those as soon as I'm done with this call that I'm about to jump on. So I'll get it to you in a few hours. But this has been fun. Yeah. And like, I just strongly recommend like play with AI. There are things that you can use. There are skills that other people have that you've been envious of. You can incorporate them into your workflow by the way like I described it. There are so many things that you can do with AI. Like the problem shouldn't be, I don't have anything to work on. I don't have anything to do with it. If that's the case, you're thinking about it all wrong. Because like I could work on this nonstop. I don't, but like there's a million questions I have. And there's a million things I'd love to try.
Yeah. For some people, there's going to be a lot of time on their hands pretty soon.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Time to get started.
Thanks for having me, George.
Thanks, Rich. If you've been waiting for a sign to finally reset to get your foundation solid, this is it. Join our 3-day online Unbreakable Bootcamp to help you build strength across your mind, your body, your emotions, and your finances. You can go to unbreakablebootcamp.com right now and register while it's still free, or click the link in the description. Again, that's unbreakablebootcamp.com.